Welcome into the Bite Meat podcast. And you know what I always like is when we got a little energy going in the old Bite Meat podcast. And who might bring a little energy? I wonder. You know her, 260,000 plus followers on TikTok, dang near 50,000 on Instagram, an HEB ambassador. And we're going to take a little bit of a turn here. Her name is Karen Wheeler, or should I say Wheels in Texas. We'll get to that in just a second. But don't forget to subscribe to the Bite Meat podcast. We've had some of the best, the biggest names, as you guys know. If you do subscribe on Podbean is where we like for you to subscribe, because that's where we record and upload on that platform. But you can get the podcast wherever you get your podcast, iTunes, Spotify, etc. And so wherever you get your podcast, you can do it. We recommend Podbean. And you can listen to all the podcasts we've always done, every one we've ever done here. So let's get to it here with Karen Wheeler. Should I call you Wheels in Texas? What's the story there, Karen? You are one of those people that are going to help us get, like I said, a little bit of a turn on what we normally do here on the podcast.
Hi, John. Yes, call me Wheels in Texas. I just launched the new name from Wheels in Austin to Wheels in Texas, since I am now officially in Houston. So.
Mm-hmm. Good deal. We're glad to have you. That's where we base out of as well. All right. So I said we're going to take a little bit of a different turn, and we always talk about, slow smoking meats and briskets and ribs and chicken and all sorts of stuff. But don't look now. Easter is in just a couple of days, and a lot of times our listeners get to the backyard and they're like, I haven't used that griddle in a while, or I haven't done this or that in a while. So I want to get into some of that with you, but I feel a lot of people are very interested in your story because you do have a day job, but you've become quite the sensation with your energetic and very captivating posts on TikTok and Instagram. And it all revolves around various things that you can do in and out of the kitchen, on the griddles, on the grills, etc. Kind of give us a thumbnail sketch of how this all happened and what you're doing.
It was actually kind of an accident. I'll back up to right before the pandemic. I actually got invited to audition for Gordon Ramsay's Master Chef season 11. And so I had maybe had a couple hundred followers on Instagram, and some producer found me. So long story short, I went and auditioned in Houston at the Galleria. And I was one of 5 still standing at the end of the auditions that weekend.
Mm-hmm.
But I ended up getting cut right before LA, and then, the lockdown happened, and we were having to video ourselves at home cooking, and I was making mayonnaise by hand, whatever the assignment was for the week. And when I got cut, we went into the pandemic and the lockdown, and I had 3 kids at home. 2 were in high school still. 1 was in college, and everyone was scrolling. We were all scrolling and watching Netflix, right? And so I thought, well, I've got to figure out what this TikTok thing is all about. And I remember my son, he was like, oh my gosh, no, go back to Facebook with all the old people.
Yeah, please don't, Mom. Please don't.
This is not your thing. So I did a little silly shenanigan on TikTok where, do you remember Tiger King?
Of course.
Yeah. So it was like I was running through the house, grabbing snacks and popcorn and all the things right before the next Netflix episode started. And then I woke up to literally thousands of followers. And I couldn't believe it. My neighbor called me and said, oh my gosh, they had put me on the front of the digital Cosmo magazine as the top 10 TikToks for the week or whatever. She's like, you're blowing up. And I'm like, where? So that's kind of how it started. And then I thought, well, I'm just going to go ahead and start cooking on TikTok as well and do what I do, and I was cooking with an HEB chicken one day. It had the little HEB sticker on it. I think that one, once it got to 1 million, I had heard from the marketing folks at HEB and said, hey, would you want to do our ads on social media? So that's kind of how it all started. But it really has, the power of social media is really incredible. If you would have told me 3 years ago that I'd be doing what I'm doing now, I wouldn't believe it at all.
Well, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it's opened doors. I I catered to UT, the whole men's basketball program. I've, like I said, I never catered in my life, never cooked for that, amount of people. And it's just really been a wild, crazy ride. So,
Well, I want to get to that because, I want to get to that. But, you mentioned the Gordon Ramsay audition and making the finals and all that. So you didn't you didn't just stumble into this. You have a background with this. So what's that background?
you mean cooking?
Yeah.
Oh, I have no culinary. I didn't go to culinary school. I'm not a chef. I'm just a mom, just flying by the seat of my pants, 3 kids. They were all in basketball they grew up on a football field, baseball field, in a gym. And so I've always had to just fly by the seat of my pants and cook whatever I had. And we didn't always sit together as a family for dinner, but it's like on the stove. So whoever's coming in from practice or games or whatever, there was always food there. I don't know how the producer found me on Instagram. I really don't. And I actually thought it was a scam. And a good friend of mine who was also a sports anchor in Austin, I was talking to him, and I said, yeah, this person reached out to me. And then he did the research and said, hey, this is legit. I think you need to call this person back. So I did. And she explained to me who she was. And so, yeah, she just had stumbled across my page and liked my content and thought I'd be, a good candidate for the show. And that's kind of how it started. And then I thought, well, I'm just going to take that, and I didn't make the cut, so I'll just start cooking on TikTok and see what happens.
It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And, you mentioned, all the followers and she found you and the content. And that's kind of what I wanted to hone in on before we get to some actual cooking and some tips and some things that people can do, especially this weekend on Easter, but can always do. You have to be unique. You have to stand out. And I don't know if it was intentional or not, but every time I started following you after we met at a Houston Texans tailgate. You were a judge for the HEB tailgate, and I was a judge at the HEB tailgate. And I was like, so I started following you. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to be completely honest here. When I first started following you, and I think I messaged you, this content is really good. But one of the thoughts that I didn't send you is like, this woman had to have been a high school cheerleader or a college cheerleader, because there's no way you can have that kind of energy just by accident.
Both. I cheered in high school and in college. So. And I get that. That is a popular question on my TikTok for sure, especially when I do the dances. Like, you must have been a cheerleader.
Yeah. So where'd you cheer?
At Cameron University in Lawton, Oklahoma. So I'm an Army brat. My dad was from Fort Sill, and so my childhood was literally in Podunk, America. And I grew up on a riding mower and out in the country. So Elgin, Oklahoma is where most of my childhood was spent.
But the energy and the creativeness is what stands out, and I would highly recommend our listeners, follow you if they don't already, because it's also very instructional. And I've been doing just like you, not professionally trained, but I've been cooking for 40 plus years and barbecuing and everything you can imagine. And I'm watching some of your stuff, and I go, okay, I'm going to try that sometime. So let's go there, because one of the things that we don't talk a lot about, we do some, is the things you can do, let's say for a big gathering, obviously this weekend, Easter, as I mentioned, on a griddle or a grill, that you don't necessarily have to stand there and cater and tend to the fire for 14 hours or whatever it is. What are some of the things that you really have gotten the best feedback on, whether it's at your home or at an event or just from TikTok, that some of our listeners, hey, doesn't have to be an all-day deal. You know what I mean?
Yes, John, for sure. So obviously with 3 kids, it's my thing. My niche is relatively healthy meals in 30 minutes or less. And one of the things that I love about propane cooking is, it's the instant gratification, right? You just turn the knob, you fire it up, and you cook. And whether it's grilling vegetables or chicken or steaks, it doesn't have to cluck or moo to be on a propane grill, right? So even, you think of grilled pineapple or grilled peaches and burrata cheese. There's the possibilities are endless, and you can do it in a relatively quick time frame. So, you can do almost anything. You can char your romaine lettuce, or, to get that smoky flavor, you could do salads. You could do cabbage. So there's lots of different possibilities to do it on the grill.
And just to hone in on that, everybody always outsources whatever it is. Like one person is going to do the brisket, let's say, or the chicken or whatever, and then so and so's bringing these salads, and so and so's bringing the beans, and so and so's bringing et cetera, et cetera. When people think of those things, they don't often think grill or griddle or propane, stove or whatever it may be. You just touched on something I was going to ask you about. Some of the hot, whether it's vegetables or whatever that you can include in grills. What are some of the thoughts there?
Oh, yes. I mean, you can do like grilled vegetables. You can do skewers. Is that what you're asking me?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's so many different things. One of my favorite things is red fish on the half shell. Just like you cut the fish in half, and then you put like one of my favorites are the sugar bombs from HEB, the little cherry tomatoes and green onions, and then you just put it on there with some fresh garlic and some lemon pepper and some little bit of olive oil, and it takes, you can have that fish cooked in probably less than 15 minutes on the propane grill. So
how much do you go outside and do that?
How much do I do it? I don't do it as often now because all three kids are, I've only one in college left, and the other ones have flown the coop. So
Yeah.
I don't do it as often, but it's very quick and easy, especially like for a busy weeknight, which, so many families are coming home and they've got, practices or school activities, and it's like I've got to get dinner on the table quickly, and because I've got to go to work the next day. It's just something so easy to do, and then in less than 30 minutes you can have your grilled protein, your grilled veggies. You can do it all in one setting, and you don't have to mess up the kitchen. The other thing that's great about propane cooking is you can it's portable, right? And it's easy. You just, for tailgating, I'm thinking, you can just set it up and then put it away, and you don't have to worry about it. Easy cleanup.
I am curious. We've talked to some great pitmasters about the phenomenons like the pellet grill, but I want to ask you about the phenomenon of a griddle. I've really gotten into it over the last couple of years because you can cook an entire meal in different sections of the griddle, whether it's protein here and vegetable here and tortillas here or whatever else, here. How do you explain, the phenomenon of griddles? They weren't really very popular as recently as 5 years ago.
That is very true. I don't know. It's funny because like even like the farm to table or whatever, I'm thinking about my grandma too. Like we were doing it before it was a trend. but
you were griddle when griddle wasn't cool.
Right. My favorite things like on the weekends is you can do your blueberry protein pancakes, your eggs and your bacon all in one. You can do fried rice, you can do anything all there in one setting. And so, yeah, I love it. And then you can control the temperature, right? So that's one thing I like to do with the propane or the gas, is that you can control the heat and where you cook it.
So let's get to some actual Easter dishes here. Don't worry about the big protein unless you want to add something in there. But I'm actually looking at your Instagram right now. I just opened it up because this is where I got some of the ideas on this, and we got to start with the deviled eggs. That's an Easter that's an Easter staple. What you have here looks like too good to eat with the asparagus and the bacon and everything else. What would you tell people about it? It doesn't have to be just like the yolks and mayonnaise. You know what I mean?
Oh, yes. What makes that dish is the candied jalapenos. It is fantastic. And, you've got the thick, crispy bacon and the asparagus tips. I mean, it tastes really good together. So,
yeah. What else would you recommend on some of these sides that people are they're wringing their hands over right now that maybe can look really, really creative, but doesn't have to take 2 or 3 hours?
Oh man, like anything really. Grilled veggies. I'm thinking sweet potatoes on the grill. You can do spinach in the sweet potatoes, or chickpeas in your sweet potatoes. You can do shrimp skewers. Corn, grilled corn with a mixture of like a little Cajun seasoning and some mayonnaise, man, uh, anything really. Like I said, the grilled romaine, grilled cabbage,
Mm-hmm.
so easy to do. And so you can get it done so quickly too.
Right. And I got to ask you this as I'm scrolling through here because I haven't done it in a couple of days or a week or so. Yeah, I'm going back to what your son was telling you about TikTok and all that. Do you ever look at him and say, "What do you say now, big boy?" What do you say now?
I think he thinks it's okay.
It's okay now, huh? With all those followers and everything. So HEB, you're an HEB ambassador, as we mentioned. What does all that entail for you? Because you have busy weekends now, and I'm sure you've got some commitments you got to do with HEB.
Yes, so I do on average 2 or 3 ads a month for HEB, and so really what that entails is whatever the creative outline that they give me. They basically have the guardrails, and then I have creative freedom within the guardrails. So if they want me to do a content on the Caroline blackberries, and they give me the guardrails, and then I can do whatever that's within those guardrails. And then I shoot the video, and then I send it off to the marketing people. It goes under legal review, right? Because they want to make sure I'm doing. I'm saying what I'm supposed to be saying,
Yeah.
and then I get the approval. So usually when it goes live, it's something that I've done, 2 or 3 weeks prior. But do 2 or 3 a month. It's been great. Love HEB, love the business model, great people that I work with. Yeah, so.
Those are things that people don't think about. They think you're just posting and HEB says cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You got to do a lot. All right. So now let's get to some proteins here, because a lot of us, including myself, are going to be smoking a brisket or chicken and sausage, or all three in my case. What would you recommend on proteins for quick single moms, single dads, people who don't have a lot of time but are having people coming over, on some of the proteins and maybe some of the approaches that they should have?
For the propane grill?
For the protein, or the propane grill, or the griddle, or even, like a Weber, kind of thing.
Man, I mean, you can't go wrong. If you're doing quick, you can do steaks, you can do chicken, grilled chicken. I mean, a steak you can have ready in, less than 15 minutes, right? If you're wanting medium to medium well. And then same with chicken. So easy. You can marinate it. You can actually buy them marinated now, right?
Yeah.
Or you can marinate it yourself and use the rubs and marinades, and you'll have something in less than 30 minutes for sure, if you want to do something quick and easy and it's not very labor intensive.
All right. So how do you do your steak start to finish? That's one that we've had a bunch of people on talking about, from Sunny Lynn, who really lets it sweat a lot with the spices. And I'm trying to think of another one but we've had, everybody has their steak. Take us through how you do, let's say, 1.5 inch steak start to finish.
Well, so the steak that I did on TikTok that got me the gig with UT
oh, there we go. Hey, how about that?
Right?
Yeah.
It was fillets, and I did them actually on a cast iron skillet is what I did. And what I do is I sear it. So I sear it a couple of minutes on both sides. And then I add a stick of butter, some fresh thyme, fresh garlic, some fresh oregano. I'm sorry, not oregano, but rosemary. And then I baste it for a few minutes. After I flip it the first time, I baste it, and then I stick it in a 400-degree oven for about 7 minutes to get the medium steak.
Okay.
And that's what I did. Yeah.
It's kind of a backwards reverse sear.
So easy to do, and it's ready in 15 minutes or so.
Right.
And I served it up with some mashed potatoes and broccoli, I think it was, or asparagus, and yeah, there you have it. So easy.
And another couple of things that are very, I get these questions a lot, actually. How do I spice up whether it's a tuna steak or salmon? How do I, rather than just do the good old fashioned grill, what are some techniques that you would recommend for like a tuna steak or salmon, a little healthier, but still try to be creative with it?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be complicated. You have to simple, right? So I just use for my salmon, I use a lemon pepper, a good lemon pepper, a little bit of olive oil. Sometimes I put some Cajun seasoning on it if I want a little kick. And man, in the oven or on the grill, less than 10 minutes for a medium salmon, or, I would say 7 to 10 minutes, and it's done. Very, very little prep. You can dress it up with some green onions, a little lemon slices, lemon wedge, and you're good to go.
So where are you now with your I guess your level of expertise as a cook? Because it seems that, look, based on what we're seeing on the phone here and on your pages, that you've really elevated your game.
Oh man, thank you. I feel like I'm no professional by any stretch of the imagination. Everything has been, through trial and error, years of experience in the kitchen, raising, 3 kids, and really my love of cooking originates back to my grandmother. She had such a big hand in raising me, and she was about 4'11" and very, very strong-willed. She's Korean, and so and she labored in the kitchen. Really, my whole childhood, I think, revolves around her kitchen and just observing her. She measured nothing, and she had a garden, and that's when I was referring back to when farm to table wasn't a trend. We were doing it.
Yeah, actual farm to actual table.
Yes. And I remember my friends going to McDonald's and me thinking, I want a Big Mac, and nope, we had to eat what was in the garden.
Yeah.
So, but she labored, and she made her own hot pepper paste. I remember summers in Oklahoma with her big, large clay pots, and how we fermented the hot chili pepper paste, and she made her own soy sauce and her own kimchi, and just did everything on her own. And so I grew up with that, and food wasn't just about food. It was about, bringing the families together. It was, it was an experience, right? So I think a lot of that still resonates with me, and I carry that on. So, like I said, we've been doing it before it was a trend.
All right. The first thing I'm going to do when we finish this and I post the podcast is send that to my son, who is an absolute freak about Korean food. I mean,
really?
he makes everything homemade. He's got the genes, so to speak, but he's got me beat on that. I mean, he just loves Korean food. You mentioned, I'm trying to remember the dish that he does really, really well, but it might be the kimchi stew, if I remember right. But I'm going to send him that. So now I got to know, because it does lead into another question I had for you before we let you go. One of my questions, and then we'll get to your kimchi and some of your best Korean dishes, because it's perfect for what I was going to ask you. In today's world, one of the best things I love about doing this podcast is we realized how small the world is getting. The influences that in Texas, it's always been, a big time Hispanic influence, Mexican influence, whatever, which I grew up on, with mesquite and all this other, flavors and cooking in the ground and all that. But today we're getting barbecue, Indian barbecue. We're getting, Korean barbecue. Obviously, we're getting a lot of Middle Eastern, influences. And those are things that are so much more accessible. Speaking of HEB, so much more accessible to sort of expand your horizons with the shrinking world that we live in. I mean, I'm guessing that's something that you embrace.
Yes, I tell you what, when I was growing up, the only place I knew to get the gochujang, which is the hot pepper paste, was in my grandma's backyard in the clay pots. And now, as I grew up and then I moved to Austin as an adult, I was like, wow, they sell this at the Asian market, and it's already in a tub that I can buy off the shelf. But now HEB has it. So you're right, it's available everywhere. And so, yes, I hope that answered your question.
It did. And that's one of the things, when I go around to all these pitmasters, and they were all from, some of them from the country, some of them from other countries, and you see the influences on it. You're kind of limiting your ability to cook and to your flavor profiles is what I was looking for. If you just go old school, Texas barbecue with a good old fashioned rub or whatever the dish may be, you got to be looking elsewhere. I mean, I'm guessing that's something, as we just talked about, that you really have experimented with a lot lately.
I have, and I think I was at Pluckers a couple years ago, and that's where I first saw the Korean barbecue wings, and I thought, oh my gosh, it's in Pluckers now. So, yeah, isn't that something? And so, yeah, you don't have to go to a Korean restaurant to enjoy things like that anymore. So, but yeah, I've embraced it. And there's no wrong way to cook. There's no wrong way to grill, right? In my opinion, it's, you just do it and do it to your liking. And, it's going to take practice and trial and error. And then you'll figure out what flavors you like and what combinations and what works for you. I just try to share it on my platform.
Yeah. So what's coming? What's coming? Just where do you get your inspiration? Because it's one thing and people ask me all the time, how can you talk about fishing every week? There's a lot there. How can you talk about barbecue every week? There is a lot there, but you do have to get creative, So how do you get your inspiration on all these videos and posts that you do?
Well, some of it is, recipes that I've always done. And then some of it is I get my inspiration from other creators. You're constantly scrolling. So I'll come across an idea and then think, wow, I wonder what that would taste like if I added this or if I added that or if I did my own twist on it. And so it's just, experimenting and, and sometimes it's just getting ideas from other creators. So I think it's just a combination of things.
Yeah.
Social media is very powerful.
Oh my gosh, yes, and I'm older than you by a good stretch, and if you don't embrace it, you're missing the boat. I mean, you have to be involved. Now, I don't do TikTok. I know I should, but I do all the other platforms, and this is something that, again, I'm always thinking for our listeners, if they want to raise their game, don't just go to one page. You got to go to a number of different pages, I'm guessing, because one thing that I have found out over the last few years, there's a lot of content out there that really is kind of the wrong way to do things, so you have to kind of filter it through your own filter.
True. Yes. And, once you start, when you get on the platforms and you start liking and you start going to certain like recipes or whatever, I mean, the algorithm will know, right? So the algorithm will know what you like based on what you're looking at, what you're liking, what you're sharing. And so it'll start pumping it out to you or start feeding it to you, literally, the things they think you might be interested in. So, I would definitely recommend to go to several or more, sites or different pages to see, what you would like. Definitely do your research, but best thing is just to go out there and do it, and
that's what you did. And look at you now. It's really taken off. By the way, I texted my son, Bosam. Bosam is his best Korean dish. I said, what's that one that I love? So
how did he learn how to do that?
He's got the gene, man. I mean, he's one of those guys. I'm all about cooking, and he makes his own bread. He does. Now he's really texting me a lot because he's so excited. He says, I make it with samjang sauce and a ginger scallion sauce, lettuce wrapped with a raw oyster and bao buns. He makes his own bao buns from scratch.
Wow, that is impressive. I'm going to have now.
Yeah, I'll have
That's more than I
do. Maybe y'all can do a TikTok together. He's not real bad.
That would be fantastic.
But yeah, no, that's what we're talking about. And before I let you go, I always like to do this with our guests. 9 times out of 10, really 10 times out of 10 so far, they're involved in some organizations, foundations, charitable organizations that I always give them the platform to share. What are the ones that are near and dear to you?
Well, I guess for me, it would be American Heart Association. I as I said before, I sell medication for heart failure, but I also lost my father in 1996 with, he actually had heart failure, but had to have a St. Jude's valve put in his heart and quadruple bypass and didn't make it out of the hospital there in BAMC in San Antonio. So I would say Austin, American Heart Association.
Well, man, this has been a ton of fun having you on, and I know it was a little bit of a sort of a different turn for our barbecue listeners, but we can all learn and certainly want to follow you. What are you doing? What are you doing for Easter? What's on the menu? We got to know.
So, two of my chickens are going to come home for Easter. One is going to be, she's still on call. She lives in Savannah, Georgia. But so I'll have 2 chickens home, and we're going to go to my aunt and uncle's house. They're in Cypress, Texas, and they're 80 and 81. So we're all going to celebrate together.
Awesome. Well, we really appreciate you joining us. That is Wheels in Texas. Highly recommend the follow. You'll see her everywhere, and you'll say, wow, where'd all that energy come from? But it works, and you can learn a lot, and it'll be a lot of fun. Coming up next is the Smoking Hot Tip of the Week with Juan Castro from Texas Star Grill Shop. As you well know, that brings us the Bite Meat podcast every week. Karen, thank you very much. We'll do it again.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, John. I really appreciate it. Maybe next time it'll be over a grill.
Yes, over a grill. I'll invite my son.
Yes, I would love